This is a video response to, and I'll just put it here. It's by George something, I don't remember his name. But he touches on some good points in the video, because there's been a lot of like toxic positivity type things on YouTube for years now about productivity and the creative process and trying to like start your own YouTube channel and that kind of thing. As someone who has quite a bit of experience now of kind of defining my own creative process, I wanted to talk about that because I think a lot of what George was talking about in that video he made kind of rang true in my heart. However, I don't think he talked about kind of the main points that I feel like I want to talk about in this video. But I will start by saying I basically thumbs up, agree with everything he said. I just wanted to dive in a little deeper into like what is the creative process and how do you determine if you're on the right path you're on as an artist or not, which is ultimately up to you. I'm trying to remember here. I got my phone, so I'll kind of look at that. He was talking a lot about just like creating, especially like on YouTube, you know, that can kind of be a grind, or any content creation, TikTok, Twitch, whatever your thing is. You know, you get into that day in, day out, 9 to 5 type grind of it where you're just like, oh, this is what I've decided to do. I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. And hopefully, you know, one day I'll hit it big, be on the big lottery, be on the big screen with all the big creators, which, you know, is certainly possible. I think it only helps you if you choose to have the worldview of like, hey, you know, this is achievable. I don't think it necessarily helps your cause if you slip into the mindset of like, oh, what's the point? I'm going to give up, which I only refer to that because I'm a human and I've gone through that and I've slipped into the what's the point of all this? I'm going to give up. Point and center for this channel I don't remember when the last video I posted was, probably a year ago, several months ago. I don't remember at this point, but at one point this channel was getting a lot of traction for me making the series of Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury and Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku challenge videos. And then I was really on like the YouTube grind like I'd never been before, and I was like getting a video up every day, and I was, or not every day, every week, and I was editing them by myself and just putting all the work and stuff into it, and it was a grind, and I burnt out on it, and I was working through the burnout, and what was in my head was just like, you know, I've cared about YouTube and all this stuff for so long, and now it's finally working out for me, and this is what the algorithm is telling me I need to do, so I'm going to push through it, and I'm going to do it, and this is who I am. You know, people were engaging with it. That felt really good. A lot of nice people with thoughts and opinions and stuff, and I'd never experienced that before, so that was really nice. But at the end of the day, that brings me to, if it doesn't feel good for you, then you shouldn't do it. So, I mean, that's where I've been with this channel, right? It's like, I've had like ideas, but none of them super excite me, and I don't want to like jump into them. Therefore, I haven't, and that's okay. As long as you don't have that opinion, and then on the other end of it, also beat yourself up about it. And he also, you know, George talked about this in his video with like, you know, burnout and that sort of thing. But I think that burnout comes from just making yourself like do the same thing just because you feel like you're supposed to be doing it, which is certainly something that falls into the pattern of what being on YouTube is like, especially once you get attention from the algorithm. You're just like, oh, this is my thing, this is what I need to do then in order to succeed on this platform, which is unfortunate that that's the way it's rewarded, because I think that that personal opinion at the end of the day makes like the worst kind of platform that we can be on. I mean, it's created what we have now, where like basically everything is just the same kind of flavor. You know, it's all vanilla. It's not very exciting. I would much prefer, in the kind of world that, or the kind of art that I like, is, you know, a person wakes up day of, they see a bird outside their window, and they're just like, I'm gonna write a poem about a bird, and I'm gonna film that bird, and I'm gonna read the poem, and that's gonna be the video, and it'll be like 2 or 3 minutes. And I don't know what the branding strategy is for it, but that's just that person met themselves on the day of. And then, yeah, sure, like people form opinions on that of just like, they'll get in the comments and be like, what the hell is this? What's that? It's just like, that's the responsibility of like shitty people, right? Like that's not your responsibility as like the person creating to like the second, like, you know, because I feel like that's what most people do. It's certainly what I still do, but especially what I did before I even started creating stuff, is you kind of It's my least favorite thing. It's my pet peeve. And if if you're around people like this, run from them. You speak about an idea and they just poke holes in it. And it's just like, okay, if you're doing that to yourself, or you're coming up with an idea and then you're poking holes in it, I can see why you'd be distressed and kind of upset about that, because you have an idea that you're excited about, but you're undermining it and talking yourself out of doing it before taking any steps towards doing it. So that's where I think the creative process develops of like, I think part of what George was talking about in his video, he was talking about like, I started making a video a week because that's what I was seeing other YouTubers do, and that's what I felt like I was supposed to do. I kind of relate to that as well, because that was kind of a natural cadence I fell into when I was really on the YouTube grind. But at first, like, I was just forcing myself to do a video every day, which, yeah, I ended up burning out on, and it wasn't feasible. However, I still look back at that fondly, because that really just got me out of the whole overthinking thing that I think most people who just have not started, which I don't have any sort of actual evidence to support this, but I would be of the opinion that most people who want to create, who haven't yet, are stuck in that phase of have not started. So that's why I am in support of, the just do it mentality that he was kind of, devaluing in his video, which is fair. There's toxic positivity, but I think like the reason why that advice seems harmful is because, again, we have people who take that advice and they're just like, okay, I just need to do it. I just need to push past it. But then they still have like this negative belief system in their mind that they're pushing past. And so it's like, I don't think that being super productive and being creative every day is the recipe for burnout. I think it's your relationship with that mantra, working through it in an unhealthy way, that creates the burnout. And that's what I think is missing from the conversation with this, is it's like people talk about like, productivity guilt and just like all the bad things that come with like when you're in a state of like not being productive and you feel like you should be. But at the end of the day, that's your own mentality with it, right? Like, I think the be all end all of what you really want is that moment of self-actualization as an artist, where like I think you do want to be in a state of being and creativity on a daily basis. That can take different shapes and different forms. One day it's making like a really, and this is really funny because I don't really cook, but like a spontaneous, like exciting meal for yourself. That could be your creativity for the day. Or like, you learn a dance or whatever. You write a little song that's only 3 chords, but instead of that part of your brain where it's like, it's only 3 chords, you're like, oh, nice, I wrote a song type shit. I think changing your relationship with like expected in, expected out is what we need. And that's where I would like YouTube to move to. I don't think it's feasible because it is a business model. And I think that's also the trouble that we have with like, there's all these, 1, young, but 2, inexperienced. And when I say inexperienced, just like, artists who haven't self-started before. So they're not familiar with like the pitfalls you have. You don't really have a friend by your side to kind of talk out of your negative thought patterns or whatever. You just kind of have them and you deal with them. And if you deal with them in a happy way or in a healthy way, I think that you set yourself up for success. If you deal with them in an unhealthy way, burnout. That's what happens. It's you. At the end of the day, it's all you. But creativity and productivity is not the problem. It's, again, your relationship with it. Your relationship with what I should be creating, what I need to be creating. If you have a good relationship with creating, that could just be like you're journaling every day. And it doesn't matter what the contents of the journal is. It's just you're doing it. And you care more about the process and how that enriches you and your life than you care about, oh, someone needs to be reading this. And that's all I'd argue for, because, again, since the system we are in rewards looking at this as like a very aggressive like business strategy for everything, and it's like, oh, niche down, figure out what we're going to do. I went to theater school. I was an actor. And there's this whole concept of typing, you have like the typical ingenue, the lead, you have like character actors, you have like, oh, he's the asshole, she's the high school sweetheart. Like, people want to put you in this box because then there's like somewhere to go off from that. And that's just always rubbed me the wrong way. I get that marketing wise, it makes sense. But I think that contributes to the recipe of burnout and feeling bad, because again, you are working in a blueprint that doesn't make sense for the creative sparks that are coming out of you, the individual. It's, okay, how does and how can the world see me in like a way that reads well? And I think if we're thinking about how something looks or how it's read, that is a form of creation and creativity, yes. But again, I think that's where this kind of dissonance happens, where you become unhappy with what you're making. And that's the dance that we're all constantly trying to, the seesaw, right? You want to make stuff for you, but also you want to make stuff that feels universal, that kind of thing. And I think literally, if we can figure out a way to dismantle that to where everyone's just like making stuff for the sake of making stuff instead of this seesaw thing, I honestly, we might live in a utopia. My personal opinion. I'm being hyperbolic, but you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so discouraging to just look around and see just like the sameness, same everywhere, same. And it's just like, yeah, if you make a video about a poem you wrote about the bird, it's probably not going to get 3 trillion views. But guess what? The people who do see that, who fuck with it, are going to like feel good because you felt good making it. At the end of the day, if it felt good when you made it, it will also make people who are like you feel good just like engaging with it. Which, I hate the freaking engagement and everything, but like, if it finds the right people, it like, if something resonates with you, you need to stop thinking about like idea. Like if an idea excites you, that means the idea is good. That means it's good enough. Because if it's good enough that you, like it resonates with you and you feel a type of way about it, you are a human, you are a person. There are other people who will feel the same way about this idea. And it doesn't come down to, how do I sufficiently convey this idea? How do I, those are logistics and stuff of it. But I think the most important thing is just following through. And that's the final point I'll kind of talk about with this video, because again, like, and I can't even speak to this because I know George has like a more developed YouTube channel than I. He seems to have a clearly defined niche and all that stuff, and more power to him, and I wish him the best of success. Again, I agree with most of his points. This was just going into my own artsy fartsy diatribe, but I do think that the more established you become as a creator, the more you feel set in your way of like, oh, this is how I have done stuff, this is the type of thing I do, this is how I need to do it. And again, that contributes to burnout. So I'm not trying to make a hate the player, hate the game situation, but yeah, I think that's why these conversations happen, where people are being like, because self-help is just, it's such like a sticky situation, man. At the end of the day, everything that people are telling you, even what I'm telling you, if you're still here, it's because it's what you want to hear, right? Like, if people are like, oh no, you gotta grab this by the horns and just do it type of thing, and that makes you feel good, and that's the kind of thing you're gonna, engage with, then that's what you're gonna get. If it's a bunch of like doomers who are kind of like, nah, screw these people who are trying to convince you to be hyper productive and like you have to be working on stuff all the time, which is also not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you probably could be creative every day if it wasn't coupled to the idea of it needing to be a certain way and having an expectation around anything. Expectation is the enemy of, I would expect, everything in your life. And that comes from, again, these aren't any like sorts of things that I have personally tackled or overcome. I don't think I'm any better than you. I'm not. These are just the things that me, as someone who is in a constant state of creating things, whatever shape that takes, these are the constant struggles and battles I have to deal with. And I don't think there is a version of reality where you stop dealing with it, but I do think it's valuable to know what it is if you are getting into trying to figure out who you are as an artist, trying to find your voice. And I think that if you can find a healthy way to make stuff and not be attached to any sort of expectation of what it is, or, okay, this is what I'm making today, what am I making tomorrow, obviously there's elements of, that can be a whole other video talking about, people are always like so religious about their schedules and planners and that kind of thing. That can become too much too. this probably isn't sufficient advice if your goal is, oh, I want to make a YouTube channel and blow up and be super rich and famous, which I think is what most people who get to a certain level of YouTube, they get to it because they have that goalpost, that business goalpost of like, okay, this is my niche, this is how I can be aggressive, this is how I can grow. You know, the ultimate goal is to grow. What I have said, I don't think will be a sufficient strategy to make you grow on YouTube. So I think if you go into it with that, you probably will fail and you'll probably be upset about it. Do I think it's probably a better strategy to feel good as a person and to interface with your creativity and artistry in a healthy way and to have that enrich aspects of your own life, but also just, you know, ultimately actually make you grow as an individual versus all these other things and noise that are telling you to like, no, you know, the more you are witnessed by people, the better you are. I do think that this is a better way to interface with creativity for me, but also to make a stronger opinion about it, I think that that is the way for good creative things to happen. And I think that the way the world currently works right now and what is rewarded is, it is a form of creativity. I don't think it's the purest form, and it's pretty frustrating to, and I think that there are other people out there just like me. Again, if I have these opinions, they're not original. Other people are feeling it too, where you look around and you look at your YouTube feed and it's discouraging because there isn't a lot of heart in it these days. There isn't. And I think we're all smarter than we give ourselves credit for, and like, if you see this stuff and it feels kind of gross and you feel kind of grimy with it, there's a reason for that. It's because, you know, you taste something and it's like, oh, so the person who made this didn't care about it, versus when someone cooks something and you can tell they put their heart into it. Like, you can just tell, right? You're a person, you have intuition. Follow your intuition instead of like the over-engineering, like, this is what I need to do. So, yeah, I don't know. That was all long-winded. I had a bunch of notes. I followed like half of them. I interrupted myself like a million times, but I like making these kinds of videos where I talk about stuff because this kind of stuff is important to me, and I just know that I don't know, I was kind of reflecting on this on my car ride to the grocery store before this video. I was like, you know, 5 years ago, I was like, I hadn't really worked on anything. I was stuck in kind of the burnout of post-grad from college, and I didn't really know what to do. And now being on the other side of it, am I as cool and well-known as I was hoping for? No. Did I have like a really established 5-year plan? Not really. But the stuff I've done in the 5 years versus I did in the 5 years before, like, you know, I've definitely created a relationship with myself and my artistic self that I feel like are the starting steps of like the rest of my lifetime, and that is really amazing. And that's why, you know, I'm really glad that George made that video. I'm glad people continue to make that video where they're calling out, you know, these kind of negative things that people can fall into when it, you know, they're trying to interface with this thing that is just the way our world works. It's very confusing and scary. But yeah, if anyone is out there and they just are trying to get started and want to make something, do it. Don't be afraid of how it has to be. The second you start thinking about how something has to be or how it needs to be, that's just a recipe for causing yourself friction to not do it. So, you know, art and creation is about compromises, especially when you're working by yourself. Compromises you have to make between the kind of vague idea you have and what's realistic. And I think the better you can work to figure out what your creative process is for the things that are compromisable and aren't compromisable, I think that will allow you to flow a little bit better and easier. Anyway, that's it. One day I'll make another video.